Hello, congregation, and welcome back to the deep dive. I've got Pastor T again.
Hello.
And I think we have a really good scripture for today.
Yeah.
So welcome to the Unveiled Podcast. So today we are in James 1:27.
Okay.
And I have to say that I didn't know much about the book of James. It's a short book, and I do a podcast. I listen to a podcast called the Bible Recap, and we are right now reading chronologically through the Bible. So we're only in Ezekiel. You read the whole Bible in a year. Anyway, but the cool thing about that is every time you start a new book of the Bible, they give you a video to watch on YouTube that completely outlines that book, which is super helpful. So knowing that we were going to be in James today, I went ahead and watched the video. It's only like an 8-minute video, and I can link it down below if you'd like to watch it. And I learned some really cool things about James. James was Jesus' half-brother, which is cool. And actually in Hebrew, his name, I couldn't say it to you in Hebrew, but in Hebrew, his name is translated to Jacob, but they call him James. So in the video, he kept saying in the book of Jacob, aka James, because his real name was Jacob. But he actually took over and started the first, or oversaw the first Messianic Jew church after Jesus died. Okay. And his whole 5-chapter book is filled with just perfect one-liners of how we should live our life as Christians. So I wanted to go to James chapter 1, verse 27.
Okay.
Let's read that first. Do you want to read it or you want me to?
You read it in yours.
I'm in New Living Translation, and mine says, "Pure and genuine religion is in the sight of God the Father means caring for orphans and widows in their distress and refusing to let the world corrupt you." But most of these, as I was doing my verse mapping, there's a lot of really good different translations.
Yes.
They all say it a little differently.
Yes. I want to read to you from King James.
Okay.
And it says, "Pure religion is undefiled before God and the Father is this, to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction and to keep himself unspotted from the world."
Very, I don't know what the right word is, but just colorful, like the way it's written is very colorful.
Yes. In
Cool
King James,
words.
it's more of the old
Yes.
English, and so yes.
I like the way that it says unspotted. Mine says let the world corrupt you. And I also, this morning, I went to the ESV and then New King James Version. And the New King James Version is almost exactly like what yours is. But the ESV says, "Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this, to visit orphans and widows in their affliction and to keep oneself unstained from the world."
Yes.
So unspotted, unstained. I like the way it said that.
Yeah, I like unstained. Unstained just really gets. And then in the New Living Translation, mine says, "Pure and genuine religion, pure and genuine, in the sight of God the Father means caring for orphans and widows in their distress and refusing to let the world corrupt you."
I like the way that it says refusing, like it's an active choice that we have.
So, is this a command?
I think it's a command because I think after listening to this video about James this morning and kind of looking through and even going back and reading the whole chapter 1 of James, his whole thing is he takes 12 of Jesus's teachings and his commands, God's commands, and kind of breaks them down a little bit. So I think it's a command.
So, what is it a command to? What is the command?
I think it's a part of love your neighbor.
Okay.
Love your neighbor as yourself. And so I think when we talk about loving our neighbor, we're not just talking about our neighbor that's in the pew, the people that we see every single day, the people who may actually live next to us as neighbors.
What if you, I see it could be a command, but I see it more as a description of what religion should be.
I'm so glad you said that. Because this morning when I was verse mapping, I went in and I did religion, because religion is in all 3 of these translations. And I thought, okay, what does a Bible dictionary say that religion is?
Yeah, because religion, when we think of religion, we're like the steeple, the building, and it's not. So what did you find out?
So there's 3 different definitions, and kind of like last week, I think we can apply all 3 of these definitions to this one verse. Number 1, a belief in the being and perfections of God. Number 2, godliness in practice. And number 3, as distinct from virtue or morality, consists in the performance of the duties we owe directly to God by obeying his will. Mm-hmm. And I think number 3, I think they all do, but I think number 3 really like hits home with this verse.
Yes. Because I see it as more of a description of what religion is supposed to be about. Mm-hmm. We're supposed to care for the widows and the orphans. And why are we supposed to care for the widows and the orphans? Or the fatherless?
Well, because that's what God would do, and as Christians, we're called to be like Christ and be like God. But I'm sure there's a different version.
Well, in biblical times, those were the most marginalized.
Okay.
Okay? So you would have people in today's society push back, maybe with like, why are we not taking care of human trafficking? Why are we not taking care of all the thousands of children in foster care system? Mm-hmm. And so this is just in Bible times. These are the most marginalized.
Right.
So who is the most marginalized in our society today?
I think that there's a lot. I mean, so that verse could be kind of broadened a little bit.
Yes.
And I like that if you read chapter 1, verses 19 through 27, James talks a lot about it's not enough to appear religious. Mm-hmm. It's not enough to just sit in a pew on Sunday morning, and listen to the sermon, sing the hymns, or sing the worship music, and then, okay, I've done that, and leave, and then come back the next week. There is a true cry for us as Christians to take care of the marginalized, which,
it's not a static. Religion is not static.
No.
Religion is active. There's movement. Mm-hmm. And when there's movement and activity, if we're going to care for the most marginalized people in whatever decade, century we're in, if we're going to care for them, then that end of the verse says, and to keep oneself unstained from the world. Mm-hmm. What are they trying to tell us?
I think, in my mind, a lot of times, let's say, for example, here's one that's kind of big because it happened the other day. Avery and I had gone to Walmart, and there was a woman walking around asking for money. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't keep cash, and also I could see that there was this woman, but there was also a man that was walking around, and being very self-aware and very nervous. Mm-hmm. I keep, especially when I have both kids, very close. Mm-hmm. They both stay in the basket. We don't walk next to the basket. You stay in I don't care that you're 4 years old, you're going to stay in the basket, especially if I'm by myself. And I get them in the car before I put groceries in, and then I get in the car and I lock the door. And that's how it is.
Yeah.
And so when this woman approached me, I just kind of said, I'm sorry, I don't have anything, and got in my car. And truthfully, I don't know if that was the most Christian way. I mean, I don't even know if I actually looked her in the eyes because I was very nervous. And I thought, oh gosh, I got in the car and it kind of shook me up for a second. But then from the back seat, my little Avers said, Mom, who was that lady? And I went, oh, how do I answer this? Because we're trying to teach our children how to be Christians. And the Bible does say to take care of those in need. What could I have done better? But then I have this fighting, what we would consider corruption that says, oh, you don't know what they're going to spend that money on. You don't know who the other man walking in the parking lot is. You don't know what could be going on. It could be a scam. And so I think refusing to let the world corrupt us is refusing to let the world have opinions about how we choose to serve others. And let those affect us.
So you and I both have fostered. Has your world changed on this side of fostering than what it was prior?
Drastically. I grew up in a bubble, a vacuum. From where I'm from.
There was a mom, there was a dad.
There was always a mom that we didn't have. Even, divorce was a thing, but there was not. Foster care was did not.
Yeah. We did not know there was neglect in the world.
That's exactly how you say it.
We didn't know that.
No.
And so to me, and it tells us to keep oneself unspotted from the world, don't let the world make us to be cynical.
Right.
When you're out there, as I do it with teenagers when we would go on mission trips, and I specifically, somebody goes, well, why do you not let them stay in hotels? I was like, defeats the purpose of a mission trip. You want them to be uncomfortable. You want them to be sleeping on a floor. And it was my high school kids we took on mission trips, and we slept on the floor on air mattresses. And we took a shower, and sometimes there was warm water, and sometimes there was not.
Yeah.
And so we wanted them to be uncomfortable, because then they were like, oh, there's a different place in the world that I don't know about.
Right. Yes.
And so a perfect example for me was we were in Dauphin Island pre-Katrina.
Okay.
And we did a lot of work down in Bayou La Batre area. And then years later, Katrina hit and destroyed Bayou La Batre. And my youth that are now adults were calling me going, what has happened? Are the houses still there? And all the people, and they knew their names and everything. They were touched by serving this community of just dirt floors.
Right.
And then they were so worried about them. And it's like it affected them. They were living their life unspotted from the world.
Right.
They did not let the world tell them that, oh, you don't have to worry about those people.
Right. Oh, yeah, they chose to live there.
Yes.
They knew those
Yes.
kinds of things happened.
Yes.
Well,
And as a foster mom, I was like, I was like, the whole world is not sunshine and roses.
oh, yes, yes.
But then to have them come in and going, oh my gosh, they live in house to house to house, and they rotate to keep away from, to keep them still in the family. And it's just, I was like,
I can remember the CPS worker dropping off our first foster baby, Allie, and I can't give details, but we didn't know how to say her name. We had it written out on a piece, like somebody had made a card for her in the hospital that they put on the babies that say, oh, this is the baby's name or whatever. Yeah. And so we guessed, and that's why we called her Allie, because we couldn't figure out how to say her correct name. If it was one pronunciation or the other. And so Allie was the easiest. But then reading her file that came from the hospital, Robbie was reading it, and our case manager and the CPS worker, Robbie and I are both like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And for them, this is an everyday. They know that these are things that happen. And so drastically in that moment, you go, the world is different.
Yeah.
The world can be different. It's not just me and my little family in our vacuum. Yeah. And we have to let those people in. And
we have to care for.
We have to care for.
We have to care for. We have to look after. As disciples of Jesus Christ, this is what the scripture is telling me. As disciples of Jesus Christ, we're to care for the marginalized.
Yes.
It's supposed to be part of our DNA. It's supposed to be who we are.
Right.
As Christians.
I mean, look at Jesus. He did it all the time. Yeah. All the time.
Yeah. Get your hands dirty. Get your mind stained. But don't let it make you so cynical that you're not going to keep reaching out and keep caring for people.
I like the way that we've kind of broken down the fact that it's not, although our Bible tells us it's the orphans and the widows, and different translations say different things. But yes, I think it's good to say the marginalized. It's not just the orphans and the widows now. There's so many other people that we can care for and so many other needs in our community. And I do want to wrap this up really quickly because we have to go down and teach chapel.
Do chapel.
Which with our kids that we love so much. But I think that you are going to be excited, church. We had an amazing faith formation meeting yesterday.
We did.
And there are going to be some fun things and awesome, amazing things that come out of this. And we just want you guys to stay tuned. So
y'all have a blessed day. And remember, we're supposed to care for, as disciples, those that are marginalized. And maybe God is speaking to you to do something. And if so, call us. Let us have a chat.
Absolutely. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
God bless.